When Jason Statham walks onto the stage of the Steve Harvey Show, the energy is exactly what you would expect. Cheers, whistles, standing ovation. He is the action star. The man with the granite jawline and the stare that could stop traffic. People are ready to hear behind-the-scenes stunts, maybe a funny story about a car chase gone wrong, or a light-hearted jab at Hollywood. Steve leans forward, cracking jokes about Jason's intense screen presence. "Man, I flinch just watching your trailers," he laughs. The audience roars. Jason smiles politely. But there's a strange calm to him today. Something reserved. He is not here to promote a film. Not really. Then Steve, trying to ease into deeper ground, asks, "Out of all the people you've worked with, who made the biggest impact on you off-screen?" Jason does not answer right away. He swallows, looks down, then back up. The room shifts. The smile fades. "There was a man named Eddie," he begins quietly, "and no one in this room's ever heard of him." The laughter dies. Silence creeps in like fog. And that is when everything changes. What follows is not a celebrity story. It is a confession. And it will leave Steve Harvey, and everyone watching, speechless. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic interaction with Steve Harvey, and comment where you're watching from today. The Steve Harvey Show stage beams under golden lights, a sleek modern set framed by polished wood panels and soft leather chairs. The audience, hyped by the opening DJ, buzzes with anticipation. Cell phones are tucked away now, but eyes stay lit with excitement. Steve walks out in a sharp maroon suit, microphone in hand, flashing that signature grin that has calmed nervous guests and cracked open the toughest stories. The crowd erupts as he waves both hands, instantly owning the space. Today, we got a man who looks like he could knock out a grizzly bear and still have time for tea. Laughter. You've seen him break bones, blow things up, and dive out of helicopters like it's Tuesday. More laughter, louder now. And yet, he's one of the most humble, grounded cats I've ever talked to. He gestures toward the curtain. "Y'all make some noise for Mr. Jason Statham." The audience leaps to their feet. Applause thunders as Jason steps out, not strutting, not waving, just walking with that quiet precision that makes you lean in. He wears a simple black zip-up jacket, jeans, and sneakers. His smile is faint, measured. The eyes, though, steel. He shakes Steve's hand, offers a small nod to the crowd, then sits, relaxed posture, but somehow alert. Like a coiled spring under the cushion. "Man," Steve says, sitting across from him, "I've been watching your movies for years, and I gotta ask, you ever get tired of punching people?" The audience laughs. Jason smirks. "Only when they deserve it." Louder laughter. Steve leans in. Okay. But real talk, what's it like walking down the street and having people flinch just from eye contact? Jason chuckles. Happens more than you'd think. The rhythm settles. Laughs, jokes, mutual respect. But something is offbeat. Jason is answering, sure, but not fully engaged. His words are shorter than usual. His eyes flick between Steve and the crowd, like his mind is somewhere else. Steve senses it too. "You all right, brother?" he asks gently, lowering his voice. Jason shifts slightly. He takes a breath. "Yeah, I've been thinking about someone lately." The audience leans in. Steve doesn't fill the silence. He just waits. Jason looks out at the crowd, then back to Steve. "There's a story I've never really told. Not on a show. Not in an interview. But I think I need to." The mood drops into stillness. Steve's expression changes. Less performer, more friend. "Take your time," he says softly. "We're listening." And just like that, the energy shifts. The action star everyone expected starts to fade. What remains is the man beneath. And the room goes quiet, preparing for a story no one saw coming. Steve leans back in his chair, loosening the mood just slightly. "All right, man, listen, I've always wanted to ask this. All those stunts you do, you ever get seriously hurt? Like, for real?" Jason smirks faintly. You mean aside from being thrown through windows and set on fire? Laughter rolls through the studio. Exactly, Steve grins. You make it look easy, but I know that pain gotta be real sometimes. Jason's smirk fades, just slightly. He looks down, resting one forearm across his knee. The mood still carries the room, but a current shifts. Yeah, Jason says slowly, some injuries stick longer than others. Steve tilts his head. What you mean by that? Jason glances at the crowd, then back at Steve. He shrugs, but not the casual, dismissive kind. More like he's weighing whether or not to keep talking. There was one shoot, Jason says, voice lower now. Long days. One of those weeks where you wake up hurting and go to bed worse. I was working with this young stunt guy, Eddie. Real sharp. First time on a big set. Green as they come but fearless. Steve nods, sensing something deeper is coming. Mid-scene, we were supposed to run this hallway explosion. Big fireballs. Timed charges. All choreographed. Jason pauses. But the kid didn't clear the blast zone in time. Took heat straight across the back. The audience goes silent. Paramedics were there fast. He was conscious. Said he was fine. Laughed it off even. But something about it didn't sit right with me. Steve watches carefully, saying nothing. Jason continues, his voice steadier now but laced with something heavy. We finished the day. I offered to drive him home. He said he was good, took the train. Said he didn't want to look soft. Next morning, he didn't show up. Jason shifts in his seat. Turns out he passed out on the platform. Internal bleeding. Went into cardiac arrest at the hospital that night. He didn't make it. The room goes still. Steve blinks, caught completely off guard. The crowd is frozen in their seats. Jason shakes his head gently. Kid was 23. No family nearby. Just a gone. Over a stunt. Steve sits forward now, both elbows on his knees. Damn, he murmurs. You still carry that. Jason looks at him, and there's no act in his eyes. Every single day. Steve exhales, the weight settling in the room. What started as a story about bruises just became something else entirely. Tell me more about him, Steve says softly. Jason nods once. Yeah, I will. Jason takes a breath, sits back just an inch, eyes steady. Eddie wasn't famous. Wasn't trying to be. He was the kind of guy you meet once and never forget, though. You know those people. Steve nods without speaking. He was 23 when we met. Just joined the stunt team on a film we shot in New York. Fresh-faced, hungry, always the first to show up and the last to leave. I remember. First day on set, he walks up to me during lunch and says, "You're the reason I got into this. I grew up watching The Transporter. Used to choreograph fights with my little brother on the trampoline." The audience chuckles softly. Jason smiles faintly, then continues. He was electric. Didn't just do stunts, he studied them. Could break down a fight scene like a director. He'd pull me aside and ask, "Do you think the elbow should land here or here? It changes the rhythm." Jason mimics a quick elbow move, light laughter again, then stillness. He reminded me of myself, before the headlines, before the training camps, before the celebrity stuff. When it was just about the work. About getting it right. I hadn't seen that kind of passion in years. Jason leans forward slightly. We worked together for 3 weeks. He wasn't just good, he was fearless. If you asked him to do a leap off scaffolding, he'd ask how high. But more than that, he listened. He learned. Every day. He'd write notes on paper napkins, fold them into his wallet. Said it helped him memorize corrections. The room is silent now. Jason swallows once. We were filming a warehouse explosion scene. One of those big-budget fireball setups. Timers, ignition gel, the whole works. Eddie was meant to cross a narrow beam just before the detonation. He hesitated, not out of fear, but to make sure another guy cleared his mark. It cost him a second. Jason's fingers pressed lightly against the armrest of his chair. The blast went off half a beat too soon. He took most of it across his back. You wouldn't have known. He popped up, gave a thumbs up. Said he was fine. I checked him myself. He joked it would make for a good story. Jason pauses. He left set that night with a limp. Refused a ride. Told me he'd grab the train and crash early. Steve is motionless now, hands clasped, staring straight at him. Jason's voice lowers. Next morning, he didn't show. I figured maybe he needed rest. Around lunch, the coordinator got a call from the hospital. He'd collapsed at the station. Internal bleeding. By the time they figured it out, it was too late. A single gasp escapes from someone in the crowd. Jason doesn't blink. I flew to the hospital that night. But I was too late. He looks up, eyes fixed ahead. They handed me his wallet. Said I was listed as his emergency contact. Steve slowly leans forward. Jason lets that land. There was this napkin inside. The last one he wrote on. It said, "Punch lands better after a pause. Less noise, more meaning." The crowd sits frozen. Jason adds, quieter now, "That line hit me harder than any punch I've ever taken." He reaches into his back pocket, pulls out a small folded square of paper, yellowed with time. He holds it between two fingers. "I've carried this for 5 years. Never left it behind." He doesn't hand it over. Just folds it gently and slides it back into his pocket. Steve nods once, eyes glassy. Jason's voice is even, but you can feel it vibrating just under the surface. "I get asked a lot about my toughest scene. That one. It never made it to the screen." He leans back. "And it never will." The silence in the studio is total. No music. No whispers. Only the sound of a man remembering someone the world forgot. Until now. Jason pauses, jaw tight, glancing briefly toward the studio ceiling lights, as if grounding himself. Then, in a quiet voice, "Here's the part I've never told anyone, not publicly." Steve doesn't speak. The crowd leans in closer. Jason rests his hands together, fingers intertwined. "When they called me Eddie's emergency contact, I lied. I told them I was his cousin. Said I'd handle the paperwork." A ripple of surprise moves through the studio. I didn't want him buried as a no-name crew member on a production line sheet. I didn't want his name to just vanish between rap parties and film credits. Jason's voice tightens, but never breaks. But when I called his family, there was no answer. I left messages. Emails. Nothing. He exhales sharply, the memory fresh. 2 days later, a nurse told me that Eddie's mother had passed 6 months prior. And his father? In and out of shelters. No known address. Steve's expression shifts. Pained. Jason continues. "That's when it hit me. Eddie didn't just die. He disappeared. Quiet. Alone." He lets the silence breathe. After the funeral, if you could call it that, I asked production for something small. A memento. Not a check. Not a nameplate. He reaches into his jacket pocket. A black, fingerless leather glove. He sets it on his knee. Simple. Worn. Frayed at the wrist. This was his first stunt glove. Day 1. He never replaced it. Said it was lucky. Jason traces the seam with his thumb. I've carried it every shoot since. Every stunt. It sits in my trailer before call time. I touch it before I walk onto any set. He nods to the glove. Every broken rib I've had, every knock, every hit, I've carried him through all of it. Steve lets that settle, then finally speaks, voice hushed. "Because you didn't want him to vanish." Jason looks up, and for the first time, you see it, not just the intensity or the grit, but regret. Deep and honest. No one should disappear like that, especially someone like him. Someone who gave everything for everyone else and got remembered by no one. His words cut like a whisper through concrete. He deserved more than silence. Steve shifts, places a hand on his chest. You're the reason people will know his name now. Jason nods once. That's all I ever wanted. The camera pans slowly across the crowd. People blink back tears. Someone clasps their hands in prayer. Jason turns the glove over in his hand once more. He always said the toughest hits weren't the ones you saw coming. They were the ones you never had time to prepare for. He glances at Steve, then the glove. Neither of us was ready. Silence again. But this time, it feels sacred. No music. No sound effects. Just a glove. A memory. A vow fulfilled. Jason places the glove back in his jacket. Not folded. Not hidden. Just carried. Always. Steve leans forward, elbows on his knees. He does not speak right away. His eyes are fixed on the spot where Jason's glove just disappeared into his jacket. And for a moment, the Steve Harvey we all know, the fast-talking, joke-throwing host, is gone. Replaced by a man who understands what grief really feels like. He draws a breath through his nose, sits back slowly, and taps his chest once with an open palm. You know what gets me about that? He says, voice low, steady. It ain't the glove. Jason glances at him, curious but silent. Steve continues, softer now. It's that you kept carrying him, long after everybody else forgot he was even there. He pauses, eyes misted, not with performative tears, but something real and worn down by time. That hit me, he nods, thumb resting against his chin. Because I had a cousin named Raymond. Grew up together. Same block, same shoes. He joined the army. I went into comedy. Steve smiles faintly, but there's no humor behind it. He got injured. Came home with pain in his body and pain in his spirit. Nobody knew what to do with him. Not even him. And I was busy. Career was talking off. I thought, I'll call him next week. He leans back, staring at the ceiling for just a moment. Next week never came. The room is still. Not quiet. Still. Steve glances at Jason, then gestures subtly to the crowd. There's people out there. Someone they love is still waiting for a phone call. Or a handshake. Or a seat at Thanksgiving. Jason nods once. Slow. Deep. Steve swallows hard, voice cracking. Not for show, but from truth. And then they're gone. And all you're left with is the seat they didn't get to fill. He turns to the audience, blinking. Sometimes, the strongest folks aren't the ones yelling. They're the ones who carry people that the world forgets. Another pause. Then, Steve reaches out, not for drama, but with quiet, heartfelt respect, and places a hand gently on Jason's shoulder. Thank you for carrying him. Jason looks back, a flicker of emotion passing through his normally iron stare. No music plays. No laughter breaks the stillness. It is just two men, one who carries grief, and another who recognizes it. And somewhere, in the silence, every person watching remembers someone they should have thanked, before it was too late. Jason nods slowly, his jaw tightening for a beat. The studio is still wrapped in silence. No music. No applause. Just the hush of a room that knows something real is unfolding. He adjusts in his seat, not theatrically, but like a man trying to steady himself before saying something that has waited far too long to be said. I used to think time was something you could bank, he begins. Like you could save it up, hold it for later. But time's a debt you never get to settle on your terms. He glances out into the crowd, not at anyone specific, but at all of them. The young, the old. The quiet ones still clutching tissues. The men with hands on their knees, eyes low, holding back the weight in their chest. Jason clears his throat. Eddie wasn't just my mate. He was the kind of bloke who never wanted credit. He'd do the hard thing, the dirty job, the boring job, without ever expecting a thank you. He gave and didn't ask for anything back. A pause. And you know what I gave him in return? Jason looks down. His fingers press gently against his thigh, as if gripping an invisible weight. Not enough. His voice is rough now. Honest. Unpolished. You can hear the gravel, the guilt. I told myself I'd take him to dinner after the shoot. That I'd check in after I got back from the States. That I'd return the favor next time. He shakes his head. Next time never showed up. The audience stays frozen. Even Steve is leaning in now, hands folded, eyes locked. Jason continues. I didn't show up for the man who showed up for me every single time. And when I finally made time, it was for his funeral. A deep breath. I kept the glove because I couldn't keep the man. And every time I look at it, I hear one thing in my head, something I've never said out loud until now. His eyes lift again. Thank you. He lets the words hang. Thank you for having my back. For being there when I didn't even know I needed it. For showing me what loyalty really looked like. Jason leans forward a bit, gaze sharpened now, not in anger, but in clarity. And for anyone out there thinking you've got time, you don't. The crowd barely breathes. You don't have time to hold back gratitude. You don't have time to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect words. The perfect day. His voice softens again. If there's someone in your life who gave you strength, who carried you, who lifted you when you didn't even realize your knees were buckling. He points gently. Tell them. A silence rolls through the studio, not hollow, but full. Jason sits back. A small, almost imperceptible smile flickers beneath the pain in his eyes. And then he delivers the line that lands like a quiet thunderclap. Give people their flowers while they can still smell them, not after they're gone. No one speaks. No one moves. Even the cameras seem to hold their breath. And in that stillness, the message lands exactly where it needs to, right in the hearts of every person watching. The room is silent. No cue cards lifted. No music played. No stagehands whispering behind the scenes. Just stillness. Steve Harvey, usually quick with a follow-up or joke to ease tension, does not speak right away. He just watches Jason, eyes locked, brow furrowed. He lets the weight of the moment settle like dust after a storm. Jason sits quietly, hands resting on his thighs, gaze lowered now. The words have been spoken. The pain unpacked. And there is nothing performative about it. A woman in the front row wipes her cheek with a napkin. A man behind her leans forward with both hands folded, like he's in church. Steve finally speaks. Not loudly. Not as a host, but as a man. That was real. The words are soft. Almost too soft for the microphone to catch. He nods once. Swallows. You just reminded every single one of us what matters while we still have breath in our lungs. Jason glances up, just enough to meet Steve's eyes. There is a mutual understanding between them now, unspoken but heavy. Steve looks back to the audience, hands clasped in front of him like a preacher about to close prayer. We chase careers. We chase money. We chase fame. But at the end of the day, he shakes his head slowly. All that means nothing if we forget the people who got us there. No applause. Just reflection. And then, with his final breath of the segment, Steve speaks directly to the viewers watching from home. Call that person. Visit that person. Say what you've been waiting to say, before you can't. Fade to black. No music. Just the weight of truth, lingering.